yes, the sequel. Tomb Raider 2, directed by Jan de Bont, released in July of 2003 with a runtime of 1 hour and 50 minutes. Only 2 years after the first one. I thought it was longer. Starring Angelina Jolie, Gerard Butler, Noah Taylor, Chris Barry, and Ciarán Hinds, and a bunch of other characters largely forgettable. With a budget of $95 million, a domestic take of $65 million, a worldwide take of $90 million, for a worldwide total of $156 million, giving the studio a profit of $61, almost $62 million. Cost a little bit less, and it kind of felt it too. Well, as for characters, this is pretty quick and straightforward. Once again, we have Angelina Jolie back as Lara Croft. Just as severe, just as serious, just as super smooth and super cool. Tough, independent, resourceful, the usual thing. What is that? Some of her character's backstory and training gets fleshed out a little more in this one. Nothing specific, just lots of hints. Butler as Terry Sheridan. He's filling in the role of Alex West from the last movie. Pretty much the same deal. Clearly former lovers, clearly former partners. Also, big betrayal at some stage here, and so there's trust issues again. Unlike number one, where all that sort of stuff just hinted at, in this one, we get a lot more in depth with this. And the trust issues come to the fore because, well, Lara really has to trust him and work with him during this. He's all sorts of dangerous and vicious and deadly. He's got a fair bit of depth of character. There's a fair bit going on with him, more than most people in the movie, and that was appreciated. Butler's great, but really this role could have been fulfilled by anybody. In fact, it would have even made more sense to bring Alex West back, to be honest. Hillary and Bryce are back, which is good. They're fun. It's nice to have them back again. Gives that sense of continuity. They have a little less to do, but a little more to do. What they have to do in this movie is a bit more meaty, got a lot more to do with the story, but I believe they have less screen time, a little less banter, and honestly the movie suffers for that. When you've got a duo like this, you really should capitalize on them, which they don't get. Leaving us with the main villain, Jonathan Rice. You call him generic, except he was just so over-presented, it was quite good. He's very pompous. He's got a real grandstanding nature about him. Fun to watch, kind of fun to listen to. The way he delivered everything made what he had to say interesting, even though what he had to say had zero content. Felt more like a Mission Impossible villain than a Tomb Raider villain. Super smart, very dangerous, not really the physical fighter, even though they give him a role like that at the very end. Still, good value bad guy in an okay movie. Then you got a spattering of other henchmen and villains and side characters and things like that. They flesh out the scene, they fill in a couple of roles, they don't really do much at all. On the whole, the characters do the job they're meant to do. They're a little less spicy, a little bit less fun than Tomb Raider 1, but still serviceable and nothing really disastrous. So that's good, and they get a 3. To be clear, this is a 3 that crash across the finish line with sparks, fire, and smoke. So story, a bit more complicated in this one. Not sure if that makes it better or worse. Opens with an earthquake in Greece. This caused a whole bunch of things to fall in the ocean, and it turns out it also reveals the possible location of the Lunar Temple, Alexander the Great's treasure hoard. They find it, start looting it, and locate this special orb. Some raiders turn up, killing everyone apart from Lara Croft, who escapes via some very silly means. Cuts herself to attract a shark, punches in the face, rides it to the surface. Bad guys get away with the orb, and now the chase is on. Once again, it's the MacGuffin hunt. Greece, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Africa. That's the world tour for this one. A big bad bioweapons terrorist has the orb. He's decoding it because he believes it leads to Pandora's box. So that's where the world's greatest disease and plague and that sort of thing will be found. He intends to take it, release it, decimate the world's population while selling anti-venom, antidote, antitoxin, the cure to all of the world leaders and important people who can afford it. Croft is recruited by MI6 to go and stop him. She picks her own agent, the not so trustworthy and largely duplicitous Mr. Sheridan. And off they go of a journey of self-discovery, general discovery, emotional turmoil, and a fair bit of violence. Chase, 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 fight, 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 off to Africa, dig their way through some seriously mystical stuff at the end, which we were kind of missing. We noticed it wasn't there about halfway through. Find the box, stop it from getting taken, the day is saved. And everyone that should get shot is shot, or melted. As I said, the story's a little bit more complicated this time. It's just not a single note. You've got Lara starting off with a vengeance mission because the friends that she was diving the Lunar Temple with to begin with are all murdered. And then while she's on this mission of vengeance, it turns into a recruited mission to save the world and stop the bad guy. And then it also turns into a bit of an emotional journey of love and rediscovery and suppressed feelings for Sheridan. So there are quite a few notes to this, quite a few angles in the story itself, which wasn't bad. They got some very nifty action set pieces, that's good. They've got some twists and turns, also good. They start off in the mystical area again, they lean into some mythology in the beginning, then they seem to forget about it all. Or at least it's mentioned in very rare passing. Until the very end, where it doubles down on the super mystical, fantastical nature of the storyline. A little out of place by the very end, because everything had been very real world. I'm not sure if the viewer was quite ready for it to now turn into a fantastical trip through the land of shadow terrors. Just saying. They repeat the recurring gag from last movie, where she's got one piece, they've got the other piece, then they've got her piece, and she's got their piece, and it's the back and forwards, I've got it, you've got it, I want it, you want it, sort of routine again. It all sorts itself out at the end, again, much like the last movie. Actually, yeah, this is a lot like the last movie in many ways. Doesn't really hurt the story, and overall, I'd say I'd go and give it a 3. It works, it's interesting, it keeps you kind of guessing as where they're going next. It's not as cut and dried and easy to predict as the last one. It just misses some of the mystical stuff, which I kind of want to see again. It still delivers a storyline worth following. And that's what you want. Look and feel. Okay, well, it looks better than the previous movie. I'll say that. It's got a lot more polish, it got a lot more shine to it. But then again, it also sometimes just manages to look a little worse than the previous movie, because whilst the CGI is better, they've taken more risks with the CGI, and it ends up falling a little flatter. It's weird. Good CGI? Well, it's in the background, it's in shadow, it's in darkness. So it's a little hard to pick out, and that's very good. All the monsters at the end, the shadow beasts in the shadow layers, they've got to trundle through there to go get to the final location. They were pretty good. The way they fade in and out of things, the way they're always, in shadow. And that worked because, the best monsters are the ones you don't see entirely. You get more a feel or a sound or a glimpse of. On the whole, that wasn't so bad. The bad bit, that was the shark. The shark is kind of lame. There's a shark at the start. They encounter as they're going down to the Lunar Temple. It comes down and it snarls at them. It makes a roar, monster noise, and then swims off. And that was like, ugh, what'd you do that for? Let's not do that again. But then they do that again. In fact, they make it a big centerpiece. At one stage, it's smack bang right in the middle. Where are we? Right in the middle of the camera, going, rah! I'm a shark! Nah. It's pretty bad. Thankfully, they don't do anything that bad again. But at the same time, it stood out way too much and it was way too front and center. I think it's a little strange when she sets up a beeper for rescue. Oh, and she is rescued by a full-size submarine. She's either really good with the local navy or she owns a submarine. I know she's rich, but a private submarine in international waters sounds like a bit of a stretch. Her access to resources comes up again when she's in a high-altitude drop pod up in the higher atmosphere and she's launched off the back of a jumbo jet or something like that. And they do a halo drop deep into China. And, that was a very cool sequence. Don't get me wrong. That was nifty. That was exciting. That was awesome. That was also a moment where I'm going, is that hers? Does she own that? Or is she getting that from the MI6 crew? They never explain that. So she's either connected again or obscenely rich. But look, other than stuff like that, the action sequences were good, the tech was good, the music was good, the sound effects were good. Oh, in fact, the soundtrack, the audio in the background, errors that they had in the last movie, non-existent. Everything blended really nicely. The sets were good, the locations were great. Alright, apart from when she's riding down the Great Wall of China on a motorbike, very, very blatantly CGI. At one time, she's fighting amongst a whole bunch of terracotta warriors. And my wife kept expecting them to jump up and come to life because, This is Tomb Raider. Statues do that in Tomb Raider. And now that I think about it, that was a missed opportunity. Surely they could have had some strange thing going on there. But, they didn't. It was just normal statues. Another thing that really stood out is every now and then, they'd have Angelina Jolie give this look like a hunting cat. This look. Look at that. That's awesome. And it was very effective. And usually just before she did something fairly violent. Look and feel. This movie was heading straight for a 3. Unfortunately, when the CGI jumps out at you and bites you, haha, bad shark joke. When it really stands out that much, it's kinda terrible. And really pulls you out. It kind of derails the moment every time. So look, I'm afraid this one's sitting at a 2.75 as well. It was so close to a 3, but Script and dialogue. Okay, so for this one, for whatever reason, it just seemed to feel less fun. It was less entertaining than last time. Not necessarily worse, but there seemed to be a little less fun. Seriously. On the other hand, while there was just as much exposition, it wasn't nearly as abrupt or heavy-handed or delivered via bat to the face. So the story was still, printed out and given to you, but you bought into it more. It was a little more relaxed, a little bit more creative way of doing things. And that was nice. They really did lean into the villain being extra villainous by killing off a board member. That was quite an over-the-top villainous dialogue and execution moment. Good value, but they really went for a run on that one. Must be fun being the hammy villain in these movies. I mean, actors must get a real kick out of doing that. I mean, you'd think, right? They do give you a glimpse of Lara's backstory as well. They don't say it so much, but she's clearly involved with MI6 and she very clearly has some military back history. They give examples, they show, not tell, for once, all that sort of stuff. And that was nice. I would have loved to have seen a third movie in this series that really went into that. They've got some good little fight sequences here too. They really quite choreoed this much better. The Lunar Temple, in the bandits' lair in deep rural China, back in Shanghai, the lab in Hong Kong. That was a nice little sequence. That wasn't too bad at all. Their escape sequence actually from Hong Kong was straight out of James Bond or Mission Impossible. Really nice. That wasn't bad at all. Great scenics actually in that. That was very, very nicely shot. Now, watching Lara Croft wrestle with herself when it comes to Sheridan was also interesting. They got this emotional cat and mouse game going on there. She's very much in control, cool and level-headed. But Sheridan, also gets her blood pumping, which does mess with her judgment at times. And it was interesting when they start to make out and you're heading into the love scene, the kind of predictable Bond moment in the middle. She flips the tables, well, literally flips him, handcuffs him, and basically tells him to get out before she has to kill him. I wasn't expecting that. Watching Lara pull herself away and threaten him to keep him alive because she knows if he crosses her, she'll kill him. And if she kills him, she's going to feel terrible because she's falling in love with him again, or at least rediscovering some very strong emotions. Of course, he comes back, he follows after, he comes in, sweeps in, saves the day. Yay, emotional reunion. And then he does the dumb thing. And the look on her face as she has to go through with her threat was impressive. In fact, it was quite intense. Much more intense than I was expecting to get out of a Tomb Raider movie. Caught me off guard. Wasn't expecting to get that quality of acting from Angelina Jolie in this movie. Just out of nowhere. Now the MacGuffin, that orb. It was interesting. They wrote it as a MacGuffin. It was treated like a MacGuffin. But then they gave it a power level that was something out of Star Trek. Mystical? Sure. Mystical fits into the Tomb Raider world or franchise quite nicely. Super advanced extra science tech. Pretty much alien level technology. Honestly, not so much. I mean, you could just pretend it's a mystical thing straight into a brain, but it's most definitely holographic projection on an item that's said to have fallen from the stars. And they hint at the fact that life came from another planet at the beginning as well. It's just got a little sci-fi Star Trek-y. The mystical and the super science Star Trek stuff did not blend well. Didn't work. Just jarring, they clashed. So with script and dialogue, I'm tossing up whether to give this a 3 or a 2.75 again. Yeah, I'm going to end up giving this a 2.75 once again. It's got good moments, it really does, but it just lands short. Just doesn't get there, which is a shame. Okay, fun factor. Well, did I have a fun time? I suppose so. Kind of, mostly. Yes-ish. To quote my wife again, she felt it was slower, felt less fun, and felt less like a computer game this time. Quite often in these computer game movies, you wish they didn't feel like a computer game and felt like an actual movie. Whereas in this one, the lack of gaminess about it, I suppose, was a detriment. And I agree with her. If someone said, do you want to watch Tomb Raider? I'd say, yeah, sure. And if they said, which one? It's always going to be number one. I'll be giving Fun Factor a 2.75. A shame, because I was quite looking forward to doing all this again. Fun Factor, 2.75. Final score time. Well, you add all this up, and you get a 14.25, which is 0.25 worse than Tomb Raider 1. Feels appropriate, feels about right. Because whilst, again, I, had an okay time, it just lacked some of the spirit and some of the fun of the first round. Considering it made $90 million less than Tomb Raider 1, that appears to be opinion widely held. Would I recommend this? No, not really. Unless you're a completionist and you want to watch all of them in a series, I maybe just give it a pass. If you miss it, you've missed nothing. So there you go. That's my review for Tomb Raider 2. Rhyming. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? Am I off target? Or, is this a bit of a dud to you as well? Anyhow, please comment down below. Like and subscribe. Share my review around. Hope that you have a really good week. And as always, find some time to go watch a movie.